Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Dorothy DeLay MasterClass Series. We're really privileged to have today joining us Mr. and Mrs. Perlman, and it's a real thrill to have them to accept this invitation and join us today. So you can bring yourself in. We're waiting for you to appear.
Here we are.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
It's wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation.
Pleasure.
You know that we dedicate this series to Ms. DeLay because she was actually a graduate of Michigan State University in 1937. So it's a wonderful journey. It happened during the pandemic, but I think it was very important to start the series and to have many wonderful former Ms. DeLay students to join. Actually, we have 18 guest artists, and today we have this wonderful opportunity to talk to you, both of you, because I know that Ms. DeLay was very important, always was part of your life, and I'm sure she's still somewhere watching and enjoying this moment. So please, perhaps I can let you talk a little bit about some of the memories of Ms. DeLay.
Well, you want to start? No, you start. I mean, well, I'll interview you then.
Okay.
All right. So when was the first time that you actually had an experience with Miss DeLay? I mean, how?
It wasn't until I had completed my second year at the Juilliard College division. I had studied, at that time I was studying with Oskar Shumsky. All of my friends were studying with Dorothy DeLay. And so it was, I guess, at the end of my second year, and it was a revelation. It just was, I think.
Was it the style or was it the personality? I mean,
It was everything. There was nobody ever like that before or since. She was an absolutely stunning person. So smart and so nice and so wise. And I just, I sound, I don't know.
like a fan.
I sound like a fan, but the truth is that she was the single most important person in my musical life for sure, and in my life in general. And I feel that when you say she's looking down on us now, I feel that she's sitting on my shoulder all day long, every day of my life, and I'm lucky.
Well, you know, the way I met her was when I came to the States. I was 13 years old, and I actually did not hear about Miss DeLay at all. I heard about Mr. Galamian. And at that time, we're talking about 19. So when you met her, what year was that?
So 62,
yeah,
maybe?
You know, because with me, it was 58. And she came, at that time, she was Mr. Galamian's assistant. And so they asked me to come, and they wanted me to play for Mr. Galamian and to study with him. So Mr. Galamian sent Miss DeLay. I remember I was staying in a hotel downtown in New York, just arrived in the States, and she came in. I still remember, you probably remember the same coat. She had a
Persian
lamb coat with a brown collar.
Yeah.
You know, and she came, it was during the winter, and then she came in this, and then I played something for her. And of course, I had absolutely no idea what she said because I didn't speak any English or anything like that. And so I started to study with her first before I studied with Galamian. And then I was actually lucky to study with both of them at the same time. So, and she was, I don't know what your experience was as far as her teaching style, because with me, it was totally different than what I was used to.
Right, but it was perfect for me because her teaching was full of kindness and sweetness. It wasn't that she was not demanding. Of course she was demanding, but she was really sensitive and nice. And I wasn't a star. I needed somebody to be sensitive and nice. And she was that person. I was very lucky.
With me, it was I wasn't used to it because she didn't say anything to me do this, do that. She would always ask me what I thought. And at that time, I wasn't thinking, you know, and there was nothing, you know, I was just waiting to get instructions, which actually was Galamian's style. But her style was a different style altogether, you know. So I was, you know, always, I actually did not practice as much for her than I did for him, because with her, there was no fear. I wasn't afraid of anything. You know, if I did something, you know, I always tell the same story. You know, if a note was slightly out of tune, she didn't say it's out of tune. She would say, Sugar Plum, what's your concept of G sharp? You know, which meant that it was out of tune. But, you know, I said, why don't you just tell me what you want? I wasn't sure, but quickly I would say that right now, the way I teach it was the same way that she taught me, you know, in involving the student.
It's wonderful. And at some point you were teaching together at the Juilliard School.
Yes, shortly, you know, a couple of years before she passed away, we actually taught together. And, you know, she was very funny. She had this huge book with all the schedule of the students, and she would sit by the desk. I'm sure that you studied with her there. You know, so it was that big desk, you know, the chair that she said was a green chair, it's still there. The same, you know, she was saying, and she was looking at the book, and then somebody was playing, and I said something, and then I said, Mr. Lay, what did you think of that? She says, Sugar Plum, you take over. You tell her, or you tell him what you think. You know, she was just busy looking, but I'm sure that there was a plan to her. Everything had a plan. You know, she had everything planned. You know, so you thought, why is she doing that? There was always a reason.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And at some point, Mr. Perlman, when you had an idea of starting the Perlman Music Program, did you have some kind of conversation with Ms. DeLay how it should be developed? And
Toby, you started, so I don't know if you talked to her.
Yeah, I talked to her about everything. And some of the things that she told me, I did what she said. And some of the things I didn't do. And everything I didn't do, I regretted later. She was right about everything. But she was extremely helpful in those beginning couple of years, because I had no idea what I was doing. The music part of it, I actually did have a vision and so on, but how to do it, I had no experience. I didn't know anything, and she was enormously helpful.
And tell us a little bit about your program, because it's been already 26 years, right?
Yeah.
I recently saw this wonderful video you put together. Everyone is playing Mendelssohn Octet. It was just incredible. How many players were there on that video?
40.
Former students, teachers, present students, everyone.
Yeah.
Mr. Perlman is playing.
Yeah. We just sent an email to all of our alum, you know, and 140 people answered. So
but in a way, you know, it wouldn't happen if it was not for pandemic. So in a way, it was even a better way to celebrate and to bring people together in a sense, because I think this video was just incredible. How musically, I'm not saying only technically everyone played, but it was really a sense that everyone is doing this in the one room.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how it turned out. I mean, it's quite incredible. Yeah. It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
And I know a couple of people, and actually my former student also went to your program, and it's very special. And I think what is unique, you try to bring this young musicians to the sense that it's not only the violin playing. I've seen some of the documentary when you listen to the old recordings and you try to discuss with them how is it different. So because unfortunately some of the young players, they're not so much interested anymore in the older generation of the players, but I think it's essential to hear them, to understand what is the language they were trying to use and how they were expressive. And also about the singing, the chorus, it's program. I think it's just amazing what you do there.
Well, that's your idea. You know, You know, everything that looks a little bit unusual and fantastic, it's her idea.
No,
It's really true.
it takes a village. We have a wonderful faculty, and we do have a point of view. And part of the point of view is that although it's very competitive to get into the program, because we usually have very few openings, because people are allowed to stay through their 18th summer. So usually it's just a few spaces. But once you're in, you're in. And we try to diffuse competition. We don't just say it. We try to really do it. And I think I mean, it's been many years now. I think it works. I think they get it. So we're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
And
it's
playing chamber music together also, I think it brings incredible bond with people.
yeah, well, chamber music, I feel that chamber music is essential in trying to be a good musician, because anything that you need to do in chamber music is what you need to do as a musician generally, whether you're a soloist, a recitalist, or whatever. Chamber music is it. You know, you need to breathe together. You need to have a sense of rhythm. You need to, you need to get along with other people. It's very essential, and we are, we really emphasize chamber music in the program.
Absolutely, yes, it's essential. And I heard that you practically started conducting because of the program.
That was the first, yeah. When people ask me, how long have you been conducting? It's very easy for me, 26 years, because that's when the program started. And, Toby asked me, she said that, could you coach the kids, because they decided to have a string orchestra. So they need a coach. So, so instead of taking a baton, I took a pencil, because that means that I wasn't looking into conducting at all. So I thought the pencil would mean that I'm a teacher rather than the conductor. So and it was a lot of fun, and the results were pretty good, and that's how it started.
Yes, it's wonderful. I would like to ask you, do you feel that there are different generation? Of course, it's very advanced. Young players all over the world are now coming, and the technical level grew enormously over the years. And you've been teaching for a long time. You've been working with young kids for such a long time. Do you feel what is really changing? What are the advantages of new generation? What are the shortcomings? What do you think it needs to be still educated, and what are the important aspects one from the younger generation still needs to try to inherit from the older players?
Yeah. Well, what's your what do you think after listening to all these incredible videos that they want to?
The level is simply not to be believed. It's so high. People play so well, so beautifully. They also run beautifully. They run faster, and they hit the tennis ball faster and harder, and hit the baseball harder and faster. And everybody is better than it was. However, having said that, I go to the concert hall and I sit down and I wait to be moved. I want to cry. Make me cry. That's the point of the exercise. And when it comes to that, it's very rare that you hear that.
So in a sense, nothing has changed.
Yeah, nothing is rare. Once in a very great while, you hear the child who has the ability to move us all. And then there's the question of, can the child survive adolescence? How does it work?
Yeah, you have so many kids who are amazing at the age of 11 or 12, and then both Toby and I, we listen to them and says, okay, I want to hear that again in 5 years, in 6 years, and see what happens.
Now, Miss DeLay had a very strong point of view about how to teach the greatly gifted child. She believed that the bigger the gift, the less she should say in the lesson. And the tremendous talent, you just put a little water on it and put it out in the sun and it will bloom, and you don't say much at all. Now, I don't know, I certainly don't disagree with her. I don't know if I agree or I don't, but that was her, she felt very strongly about that she would let the student find his or her own way.
And she also believed, which I don't know if I agree or disagree, in some points I disagree, she believed you could teach anything to anybody, you know, anything. And so we were talking about how do you teach, you know, what comes from here. And she thought you could. And I don't know if I agree with that, because she was such an enthusiastic pedagogue that she thought everything is teachable if you know how to do it. It was interesting.
Yes, it's very interesting. But when we listen to some of the old recordings, you know, when we hear Heifetz, we hear Milstein, we hear Isaac Stern, we hear Casals, we hear Pavarotti, we hear Itzhak Perlman, Pinchas Zuckerman. You know, it takes 2 seconds to tell, I know who's playing. Do you think we will have this kind of generation of voices that we can recognize those inner voices, how they breathe, how they sound?
I don't know. That's a very good question.
No, I think the possibility is certainly there. I think it's there. I think, I mean, I hear every once in a while, I hear one of these kids and I'm so moved. It's just, as I said before, it has to do with adolescence and can they make it through and can they withstand?
Can they survive?
Can they withstand the pressure?
Yeah, there's lots of pressure. And how do you advise some of your students to focus on the path, to develop the right tools in order to find their own way to express themselves in a, I mean, it's very challenging career now. There's so many great players. It's very competitive. And it's important to find your own voice. And it's important to enjoy what we do.
Well, I don't think that career right now is the same that it was 40 years ago, right? It's you know, and I say to the kids, you got to use your imagination as to what you want to do in music, because a career, it was a simpler thing, a career. Like,
I don't agree with you. The kid the artist will, it will just, everybody knows. Now, I can't think of anybody offhand, but I mean, I listened this morning to Horowitz play a Chopin, Black Key Etude. You know, it was just fantastic. I couldn't breathe. It was so wonderful. You know, now I'm not saying we're going to get another Horowitz. I'm just saying that when you hear that, it is universal. We all have the same response.
That's true, but can the kids, you know, can you have an individual, another individual,
yes,
so that you can say, like you're saying, you know,
yes,
will I be able to recognize somebody again? Like I always say that, you know, I mean, when you think about the people that you mentioned, also Oistrakh, Francescatti, Kreisler, so on, all totally different. And I have a feeling that it may be that the presence of the internet and the idea that anybody can hear what a lot of people listen to, people who are playing today, you know, the people who are performing right now, they don't listen to, that's why I'm doing this at the Perlman Music Program. That's why, because I feel that listening to old recordings of Heifetz and Kreisler and you know, Casals and Feuermann and so on, and Piatigorsky is like learning history, because we all, you know, the way we're playing, it's a part of history. You know, that's where we came from. And, you know, it's not good enough to listen to the people who are playing right now, because as a result, what happens is that, you know, the style is affected. one of my favorite examples is if you listen to early recordings, really early recording of Heifetz, he does not sound like Heifetz. He sounds more like Kreisler. He sounds, you know, there is a softness, you know, he has not yet developed the style of Heifetz. Why? It's because that's what he was hearing all the time. So right now, the kids, all they hear about is all the people that they can reach on the internet, you know, all the very talented people who are playing, and the style today is different. And so everybody doesn't, you know, they think that, you know, if I do a slide or something like that, I'm old-fashioned. I don't know.
And I think it's important also for younger players to understand when we talk about some technical aspects like bowings and fingerings, that one should learn to find a way to come up with its own ideas of fingerings and bowings, like older generation of players, because it's what makes the playing unique, because you have to be convinced that you want to make this certain sound. So choice of the fingerings, I think at some point when one is playing serious repertoire, I think it's a part of becoming expressive player. What do you think about this?
I agree. I agree. The problem is that, you know, Galamian always said, you know, he gave you the fingerings and the bowings, and he said, that's it. You keep those fingerings and bowings. So there, you see, my problem is that once you find the fingerings and bowings, you see, sometimes you look at students, the copy of their music, and it's like in 4 different colors. I said, what is this? I said, well, that's 10 years ago. This is 8 years ago. This is 5 years ago. So as a result, what happens is that if you want to study something, let's say that you study the Mendelssohn Concerto and you put it away for 5 years, then you want to study it again. If you don't use the same fingerings all the time, you'll have much more of a hassle to restudy it, because you don't have, you know, I can play a lot of stuff that I haven't played in 40 years because the fingerings were always the same. Now, I can't play it really well, but I can sort of maneuver right away. So it saves you 50% of your work. It saves you if you have the same bowings and fingerings. But I do agree with you that this is something, the culture of bowings and fingerings, I feel, needs to be developed. Did Mr. DeLay ever talk to you about bowings and fingerings?
No, you got the fingerings from the person who studied it before you, whoever Mr. Galamian told you, or she told you to go to so-and-so, John Smith, for the fingerings and bowings, and you did it. And then you played those fingerings and bowings, and God help you if you went into Mr. Galamian with other fingerings and bowings. That was not
he said,
a smart thing to do.
What are you doing? What is the problem? Good. And that's the way, you know, that's the way he spoke. So you probably, did you ever study with Galamian?
No, I never, unfortunately, never met.
So you would appreciate my my imitation.
No, but I heard that imitation. You know, that can be already a context between you, Pinko Zuckerman, Jimmy Lin was here. He was also imitating. So I get the picture, and there's some videos of Galamian also. So I can tell that you're doing even better imitations than the original.
The other day I was teaching, you know, somebody said something. It says, when I do this, it really hurts. So Galamian would say, then don't do it.
That I didn't hear it. That's one.
He always said, he had a kind of a very subtle sense of humor, you know. He would, you know, but anyway.
But I like this actually. I think first thing Jimmy Lin told us a couple of months ago when he came for this webinar, he started telling the story how he met you, I think, back in Australia. And when you were having masterclass, and you said that Galamian would say that there's 3 different kind of vibratos, right?
That's right. That's the old story. This was the slow one, and then there's the slightly faster one, and there's the very fast one, and they were all the same.
But it's wonderful to have this kind of figures in the history of our field, that they had such a personalities that they can stay in the memories of the students and go to the next generation. And it's wonderful that, you know, for me, it was an incredible journey, this series, because every guest with bring something from a little bit different perspective. So we would talk about similar things, but the angle, the personality, the view on the things can be slightly different. And it's wonderful to see that, you know, there's so many, it's a vast amount of possibilities to find the way to do it good. I mean, there's one teacher in Russia, he would say, there's only one to do it badly, but there's many things to do it very good.
It's very funny. There's only one way to do it badly.
Yeah. And there's another phrase I laughed with some of my teachers from Russia. He said, you know, sometimes students say, you know, it just happened something happened by mistake. He said, something good happened by mistake. And he would say, nothing ever happens good by mistake. You know, there's some bad thing happens by mistake. But if you play well, it cannot happen by itself. You really have to put the effort and time. So it was interesting when somebody was making critique about somebody, said, oh, he played really well, but it's just an accident. So there's no such a thing as playing well by an accident.
Well, there's always, yeah, there's an indication that somebody has something to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, we have many attendees, and they're going to push some questions for you. And I already received some of the questions by the email. And one of the questions I also wanted to ask you, how do you prepare for the concert? Do you have some kind of routine of preparation?
No. Next question. No, well, it depends what I'm playing. You know, if I'm playing something that I know, that I have experience with, then, you know, I just make sure that it's in good shape. But I don't have, you know, I mean, I know that there are a lot of, I remember there with a lot of artists where they, before a concert, they had a particular routine that they used to do. And I don't do that. You know, right now, I actually forgot, you know, I haven't played in more than a year, so I forgot what I do. But usually what I would do is I would go to the city where I would play, and I would know the recital, I would know the program, and I would just, you know, have a little rehearsal before the concert and play. That's all.
And in terms of the practicing routine, do you still keep something you did long time ago, or you made something different over the years?
No, right now, during the pandemic, I've been in the last couple of months, I've been practicing stuff that is just like pieces that I haven't played before. Just, you know, and then I realized that there was a reason for me that I haven't played them before, because they were difficult. And right now I said, why is this so difficult? No wonder I didn't play that piece before. And you know something, it's not getting any easier.
But I heard that you've been actually playing chamber music over the internet. That was something very fascinating.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It's a what is it, jam kazam or something? Yeah. And it's like we're 4 people, and we all have earphones, and we hear each other. It's really great. I mean,
but you have to be within certain distance, right? Otherwise, it will get.
We are in the New York area. So if we have on the East Coast, no problem. Obviously, you know, if somebody's on the East Coast and somebody's on the West Coast, I have a feeling we never tried that, but I have a feeling that's not as good. But if you are, you know, in the same time zone, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I just would like to say again to our attendees that you're welcome to put some of the questions, perhaps shorter ones, because I see the very, very long sentences written here. So some questions I would like to ask you to put in the chat so we can address. And also I would like to, you know, ask you about your favorite subject. I hear it over and over, and I would like you to elaborate on slow practicing.
Okay. Well, I would tell you a sentence that I keep constantly repeating. If you practice slowly, you forget slowly. You know, I feel that the practicing, did Mr. Lay ever discuss with you The way to practice,
Yes.
or you knew, because you were a very good practicer.
Yes,
so,
but that happened when I became her student.
So
She
did she
talked a lot about practicing. You don't know how to practice.
see what I mean? See what I mean?
You have no idea. You're saying practice slowly. You don't practice slowly.
I practice
You
slowly
play
when I
just-
practice slowly when I need to.
And
No,
slow is a relative thing, right?
Listen, who do you trust? And believe me,
Well, I practice not only slowly, but I believe in practicing in rhythms, which a lot of people
different patterns, right?
No, just two. I mean, I believe in just two patterns. Dan ta dan ta dan ta dan, ta da ta da ta da ta da. Those just two. Dotted, and and that's it. And you do like, I believe you do like 10, 15, 20 times one rhythm, and then you do the opposite one 10, 15 times.
But if they're triples, then there must be three, or you don't care about the total.
I don't do it. Toby, you disagree with me sometimes on that one. I don't know. Because
I want to say this in all seriousness. I mean, he really doesn't practice slowly, but what he does, which I think is very unusual, is he brings a certain kind of focus to his practicing. So what do you mean? What does that mean? Well, first of all, let's talk about what is focus. This is the guy who played through an earthquake. The chandeliers in the hall were swaying. The hall was creaking because it was moving. He was playing the Ives Sonata, right?
Where?
In
someplace
California.
in LA,
someplace.
California, someplace.
This is
over there.
years ago.
In early 90s? 1990 was 94 or something?
I don't remember yeah, but it was.
I don't remember either. He played through the earthquake. He didn't know there was an earthquake. That's how I define focus. That's the kind of energy he brings to his work.
Yeah, but
so all of us mortals, we practice it again and again and slowly and in rhythms, and we listen, we try to listen. He might only do that a couple of times.
Well, you see, I think
And
I'm a
it's
good
enough.
judge. I'm a good judge as to what is needed, as far as what I feel, what I need. But I do believe that practicing slowly is incredibly important. But even more important is to practice in a way that you can actually hear what you're playing. Because the thing about practicing that is so obvious is that the repetition. You repeat over and over again. So you want to make sure, and I always recommend practicing in small segments, 2 bars, 5 bars, or whatever it is, so that everything that you play, for example, for intonation, that it's perfectly in tune. Because if you practice slowly and you repeat, and one note is slightly out of tune, you learn how to play that note out of tune forever. So you want to make sure that everything is just right, and that's why I recommend doing it in small segments, so that you have control of everything, whether it's the left hand or the right hand. Whether you produce a sound, because the repetition is what makes what helps the practicing. And then what I've been saying is that sometimes I find, I don't know what you find with your students, that sometimes they practice everything slowly and then they bring it to you and they play it slowly as though they cannot play it faster. And I say, can you play it a little faster? And they do. And they're surprised that they can actually play it faster, because it's like becomes a habit. And all of a sudden they say, well, I cannot play it faster because that's the way I've been practicing it. So I say to them, after you practice everything slow, try and see if you can do it faster, just for fun. You're alone in your room. Nobody's going to kill you if you make a mistake. And, people are surprised that they can actually trust, after a while, that they can actually get more of a speed in the, I just had something like that yesterday. Somebody played the Paganini Caprice and, kind of slowly. I said, can you do it faster? Wow. It really worked. So trust in your practice as well.
Do you practice without the instrument?
Do I practice without the instrument?
Just in your head?
Suppose maybe, if something, yeah, but not really. What?
Well, I was thinking of the story of when you were a little boy in Feldenkrais.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, but I always I was looking for reasons to practice without the instrument. And when I was growing up, when I was like 10 or 11, I hated practicing. And my parents took me to this guru, this person. His name was Feldenkrais. I have a feeling that some people know who he was, some older people know who he was. And he believed in, working with the brain and so on. And he said to me that, the brain is so amazing, you can actually practice with your brain without actually playing. And I thought that was great, because whenever my mother would say, "You're not practicing," I said, no, I'm practicing in my brain.
It's wonderful, wonderful story. But I think, I find practicing, not this way, but in real sense that, especially on the airplane, there's plenty of time to think about the phrasing, just in even to feel, to develop some kind of inner sense of connection, that you are really trying to imagine ideally how it would sound, not the way it would come up because of the some kind of obstacles or something which was.
I most of the time when I play, I do it as I play. I don't plan ahead.
So it's very natural for you.
I get inspired by the music, and
so this is for you is always the path. You didn't have to really think about this so much or change. You felt that it's really coming. If you know the piece, you have to learn, of course, the notes. You have to learn certain details, but then it comes through your inner voice.
Absolutely, and also, you have to rely on the music that you play, and especially when you repeat things. When you play the Franck Sonata. How many times? One time, twice, 3 times, 10 times, 20, 30, 40. What do you do with it? So you have to kind of rely on the music and not just say, well, I'm playing it like that because that's the way it goes. That's always the bad thing to do, is to play because the reason to play something is to find something inner something in the music as you play it, but not to just automatically play it. Here I make a diminuendo, here I make a ritardando, and that's it. Because everything should be alive. Every concert is a new experience. Otherwise, might as well get a recording and say, I'm going to play for you my recording, and that's the way I play. But that's the difference between that and a live concert.
So basically, you answer that question. We talk about this. What was so special about the older generation of musicians? I think was something unique because it was happening the moment they were playing. You could feel that the music comes the moment they play.
I thought so. I remember.
Perhaps it's something maybe should be very encouraging for younger students to hear, because I think very often the problem is they learn a certain way. They know exactly how to do this. They know all the tools. They know how to use them, but they don't really use this sense which you just explained, that they let the music go through you at the moment when you are performing, the moment you're on the stage.
That's my way of doing it. That's my way of doing it. Yeah.
It's wonderful to hear it from you, because I think it's most important thing that we are capable to go on the stage and not to be worried about anything and just to let this happen.
That's the trick, right? Not to worry. You go on stage and worrying will take away the spontaneity.
Right.
You're concerned about intonation, you're concerned about the bow.
Yeah, but after all is said and done, the great artist is compelled to play a certain way. The great artist has no choice. It's like breathing.
You're right.
Yeah, it's wonderful what you just said. It's absolutely right. And do you have any advice for younger players how mentally prepare for the state of not to worry about this so much when they go? Of course, they feel tension before going on the stage. What would be the right mental preparation?
Well, they have to ask themselves, did they practice? And the answer usually is yes. So they need to trust their work, trust their practicing. I don't know. Is there a magic formula for?
I think the more you play under pressure, the better it is. So I always say, you know, if you're playing a piece for the first time, always try and play it for people. Play, even if it's like 3 people, bring 3 people and in the room and play the piece. Get yourself nervous. You know, the more nervous, the more times that you're nervous, the more familiar you're going to get and the easier it's going to get.
And that's the value of studio class.
Right.
You know, to play it in a safe place. He has a rule about studio class, which I think is a great rule, which is that everybody in the class, and then they go around and they discuss the performance, has to say something nice before they make a criticism. And I think that's a great rule, because that's what you want to hear, something nice about yourself after you've just played.
It's true. It's true. And one of the nice things is for me as a teacher that I always am very flattered is that when people repeat what I said in a couple of lessons ago, and I said, oh, they actually heard me. That's nice. It's very nice, you know, but it's really true. You know, you want to hear, and also after a concert, when you go backstage, if you hear a friend of yours play and so on and so forth, and no matter how they played, the first thing they want to hear is, I love the way you played, or I love, you know, how you did that second movement, you know, it was wonderful, you know, and if you feel that you are not a good friend if you don't say anything, there are always going to be opportunities later, but right away, after you've performed, people want to hear something nice. That's really important, you know, and I think that one of the nice things about the Perlman Music Program and, you know, Toby's philosophy is that everybody really is a fan of, you know, people support each other. And, you know, we have this thing called WIPS, which is called works in progress. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you know, sometimes for me, sometimes somebody's very, very nervous and it's not very, very good. You should see how people go backstage and they give them the support and, you know, and so on and so forth. And they cry with them and so on and so forth, because people get, you know, very upset if something doesn't go right and so on. That for me is the most important thing. It's for that, what makes PMP so special is not so much what you play, but it's your humanity, is, you know, how you treat your fellow student, your friend, and so on. That's really very, very important.
Yes, absolutely, because, you know, we live in a very competitive world, and in many schools you feel there's some positive aspect and some negative aspect of this competition. And I'm sure there's some very positive aspect when you hear somebody who is really strong player and you feel that there's something one can reach up to that level and it gives you certain motivation. It's wonderful, but to feel that there's so many good players, I'm not good enough, and what's going to happen, I don't think it's very productive sense of competition.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Absolutely.
But is there a way, do you think, is there a way to somehow avoid this mainstream of competitions and find a path doing something in a different way?
You mean when you say competitions, you mean actual competitions?
Actual competition, yes.
Oh, look, I mean, neither one of us believe so much in competitions. And the thing is that if the kids want to go, I say to them, so how are you going to feel when you lose? Because if you win, no problem. But if you lose, it's important to know what's, and then they said, oh, well, you know, it's really not to win or lose, you know, it organizes me and makes me practice better. I said, fine. So and then go, you know. I remember that I used to have a student that would just go to competitions just to win a little money. even if it's the fourth prize or the fifth prize or whatever it is, you know. But I don't know. Do you feel that you have students, a lot of students that just go?
You know, first of all, I think that one needs to really prepare well in order to feel that, as much as possible to be ready for competition. I don't think one should go just trying things, because it's first of all, some of the member of the jury will have to be taken by somebody's playing, even if it has some imperfection. It's not about winning, it's about making a statement on the stage. Because I think if you sit in the jury, I don't know if you ever judge a competition, but I'm sure for most of the jury members, it's really, well, everyone looks for the fresh air, fresh way of interpretation, not just for the perfect playing. So in that respect, when somebody is not afraid to go to competition and to find its own way to express music and to feel it, to treat it as another performance, because how one get a public performance is, of course, competition might help. Even if you don't win the first prize, still somebody can hear you, somebody can invite you for the concert. So there's some kind of maybe hope for continuation of some kind of concert experience. In my time, when I was growing in Soviet Union, in mid-80s, there was the only way to get some kind of engagements is to win competition with inside of Soviet Union, and of course going to have any chance to go abroad. I was fortunate to win Paganini competition, otherwise I wouldn't be able even to go anywhere. It's how I came to United States and how I met Ms. DeLay actually after Montreal competition. But at the same time, there are some wonderful players who never went to competitions, or they went maybe only once, like you did, when it was just appropriate timing, and it was just launched your career because you already, I'm sure you were already, people knew that it just gave you more concerts.
It was after I won this 11th competition. About a month later, somebody says, so when are you going to go to the Tchaikovsky competition? And I said, why? Why should I go? Whatever I wanted to accomplish from that competition, I wanted to have management and to have an opportunity to play with some nice orchestras. I had that. Why do I need, but there's some people who love to compete. They just, when you look at the list of fiddle players, there's always 2 or 3 that are in every competition. The same ones, they don't necessarily win, but they always go.
In a way, maybe they feel that it's like being a tennis player. You have to win all the big slams or something.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you work with Sol Hurok, right?
Yes.
So this was quite a remarkable man who really started this concert industry in the United States. I read his book, actually. I think the book was written by the Solomon Volkov, Russian former musician. And maybe you could share something. What has changed in all these years? Sol Hurok he really believed in the classical music. He wanted to introduce music to very simple people living in Brooklyn. He would bring them to Carnegie Hall. He would rent the hall. So he was really creating a new tradition of the classical music. Of course, it has changed in the last 50, 60 years. And what is the importance of managers today compared to that time?
You have about 2 or 3 hours. We can talk about that.
We do. If you do have 15 minutes, let's.
We saw them a little bit, right? I didn't have that much contact with him because I had contact with people who worked in the management under him.
2 things I remember about him vividly. One is sleeping through the whole concert. We were sitting near him, sleeping. The applause came, the concert was over. He looked at the hall, he counted the house, and he left.
It was really true.
That was one thing. And the second thing was that we were once invited to his house for dinner, just the 2 of us and him. And I took my napkin off the plate, and underneath my napkin was a bottle of Chanel No. 5 perfume, not cologne, perfume, the expensive. I never even had a bottle of real perfume. And that was like Very exciting.
Well, and he believed, you know, he was
Elegant.
he also believed, I remember he would talk to me about program recitals, and he believed in pleasing the audience with the kind of program. So he would always say something like, "All these people, all they do is play sonatas." And he loved the fact that I would start with sonatas, and at the end I would play some, you know, some bonbons, you know, Kreisler, Wieniawski, Sarasate. He thought that was very, very good. And like Toby said, you know, all he thought about was, you know, is the concert hall full? What kind of reaction to the audience has to the artist and so on. So he was, you know, he was a manager in the grand tradition. And
I want to just add one thing, which I think is very important. Miss DeLay really prepared him for his career. So what does that mean? It means that when, at the time that he won the Leventrid, he had all the concertos, except maybe Bartók. Did you have?
no, I think, yeah, I had Bartók.
He
I
had
did not
it.
have Barber. Barber I didn't
Okay,
have.
Barber later, but
Yeah.
he had all the concertos, he had all the big sonatas. He was ready to go. So it wasn't one of these things where every concert was nerve-wracking because maybe it wasn't going to be so good or he didn't know. He was truly prepared. And she also helped him in terms of how to present himself to the world. Really, I mean, really helped. She was really in there. She came to his concerts. She traveled to hear him play. She never criticized him in those days. She gave me a list. Here, sugar plum. Here's what he needs to work on.
She was really true. She was truly a full service teacher.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
not just in the studio.
She took that as a responsibility, and I watched her do it, and she really knew what she was doing.
Yeah, she was wonderful in taking care of her students. I remember, especially with girls, if they had any particular important concert debut or something, she would carefully choose the right dress.
Right.
It was it's very sweet.
Right. Very sweet and important. You know, present yourself as a professional, look like a professional, act like a professional. Yeah.
There was a question about Mr. Perlman passion for cooking.
Now he's doing all the cooking.
So now I understand why he's eager to go and play Beethoven to Houston very soon, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Eager to play Beethoven.
Beethoven in Houston, you have plans for your first concert after a very long time.
What has that got to do with the cooking?
You're still going to cook, right?
Of course. I love to cook. I mean, the thing is that Toby is a great cook.
No, not at all. And the thing is that his experience the past year, it's one thing to be a good cook and every once in a while cook a meal. It's another thing to put a dinner on the table every night.
Exactly. That's
what he's been doing.
But you've been helping.
He's making chicken tonight, and I'm just going to read my book.
Are
you improvising, or are you following some kind of recipes?
Always improvising.
Always.
I tried a recipe twice and it was a disaster. You know, my favorite experience when I made you ravioli in tomato sauce, and I looked at the recipe and the recipe was for 4, and the thing was for 2. So everything, all the spices, everything was for 4. So it was a disaster, you know. So since then, you know, logic, that's my recipe, logic. Obviously, you know, I'm not such a serious cook like.
But you have a great experience because you've been cooking for many years, right?
Yes, but I'm not really
you're an excellent cook.
I'm a good cook, but I'm not a gourmet cook.
Consistently good.
But don't you think there's some kind of parallel? I just thought about what you said about playing and, you know, following your inner voice. I think with the cooking, it's also very important to find the sense of proportion and imagination and also anticipation. You feel you have to have intuition that something is going to be right. Because if you just follow the written recipe,
yeah, but you see, but if you bake, for example, you can't.
I know baking is only different. You have to really be strict.
It's got to be exact. It's got to be exact. You know, I mean, but cooking like that, you know, and doing stir fries and things like that, and pasta, that's, you know, that's I find that easy. And then you use your logic, you know. I decided that my tendency is always to underspice. That's my problem. My problem is never enough salt, because I figure you can always add salt, but once it's too much, it's too late. So I'm afraid. So anyway.
Do you ever cook for your students at the Shelter Island at the festival?
No, we no. Or do we? Yes, of course we did. No, at Shelter Island we have a great cook. I mean, it's fantastic cook. I don't know how we're going to do it this year.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
So you're planning this year in person?
As of this morning, yes.
It's wonderful.
But
Yes.
it's going to be very, you know, it's going to be very different, you know, than the normal.
I think we're gonna do it. I think we're gonna do it safely. And yeah.
It's wonderful. It's something to look forward.
Yes.
And it's such an amazing place, Shelter Island in Long Island. I've been going for many, many years since I came to the United States. I mean, last 30 years to Southampton, and I also been doing some chamber music festival in Southampton area. And I took a couple of times that ferry to Shelter Island. It's such a beautiful, romantic ride.
Yeah.
And you can bump into some of the celebrities. I think I happened to be on the same small ferry with Richard Gere once. You know, there's so many people are spending time in that part of Long Island. So, and at the same time, it's very rustic. So it's wonderful for kids to delve into the music and to be able to swim and to do
we have
things.
fantastic, the best sunsets, you know. I mean, when the sun sets, oh, it's just so dramatic. It's amazing. It's amazing.
So how many students do you usually accommodate there?
So the Littles program is a 7-week residential you know, like a summer camp. And we've had as many as 40 kids in that program. It's too big, really. The ideal size is 35. And I think this summer we'll have only 32, because the foreign students, it's very problematic for them to get here with the quarantine, and it's tough. So 32 in that program. The Chamber Music Workshop, which is a 3-week program and for older students, we've had as many as 50 young artists for that. And I think this summer, much less than that. I'm not sure of the number there.
In other words, it's a small program.
All of this is just happening now, really as we speak.
So you're still auditioning, you're expecting people?
No. We've admitted the ones.
You admitted already.
We did that on our regular calendar. So we're good to go. And we'll see.
Good. I'm looking forward.
Me too.
See what happens.
Yes, I'm wishing you a great success in this, because I think everyone is so hungry for the live music. Yeah. And I'm sure it's very important for kids to play chamber music together and spend some time and look forward to the brighter future. It was very challenging time for everyone. Yeah. I think there's certain positive aspects. We had time, like I think I watched your the documentary, and Mrs. Perlman mentioned that for Mr. Perlman, it was maybe first time in his life when he suddenly slowed down. He didn't play so many concerts, so he had time to do other things.
Yeah.
And I think for everyone, there was a time to think about certain things which we take for granted, and perhaps to find some positive aspects in this time we spent in little isolation. But I'm sure we will find a way and strength and to bring everything to the bright future, and hopefully we'll return soon to the live concerts.
I hope so too.
And I'm sure everyone is so excited that you're going to Houston and you're going to play and conduct Beethoven program there. So it's wonderful. So I really thank you for your time. It was such a wonderful hour to spend with you, and to feel your joyful vibes passing to all of us. And
to everybody.
And it's a great way to commemorate the legacy of Miss DeLay, who was really incredible individual, and she brought up so many wonderful artists. And I was fortunate to know many of the artists, so they were kind enough to accept my invitation and come to this program. Hopefully we'll continue in the future, and we'll go to the live sessions, and perhaps we'll keep some of the Zoom webinars as well, because I think it's a great opportunity to connect with so many people.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. It was a great
Hope
pleasure.
to see you and hear you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye. I would like to thank everyone again for joining us. It was a really wonderful time with Itzhak and Toby Perlman. We couldn't answer many of your questions, but I'm sure you had very meaningful time listening to some of the conversation we had, and hopefully we will have more of these webinars in the future. It was a terrific year. As I mentioned, there were 18 sessions, 19 including today, and we had wonderful artists. And since October, it gave me so much enthusiasm to try to develop this series. And of course, your attention, your support, your interest is very important. And I felt fortunate that so many people are paying attention to this series. And I would like to welcome you in the future. And I would like to thank my former student, Austin Burket, who had been really very helpful. And of course, Lauren Harris, professor of psychology at MSU, who really been very generous in supporting appearance of the guest artists. Thank you so much, and I will see you all very soon. Musically yours. Bye-bye.